response to pressure. And so, a lot of times we can, and this podcast is for me as much as it is for anybody,
Right.
because, man, I'm guilty of all kinds of these things we're going to talk about. But we can talk a certain talk,
Right.
and even believe that we are this way. Kind of like what you said, we don't want to be known for, preaching about food or
Right.
whatever. But we can talk a certain talk, and we're not being hypocritical, but we feel like we're that way. But then if we look back and see, like, are we really, our track record? And then also when the pressure hits,
Mm-hmm.
how are we then?
Right.
Because that's the true test, right?
I think that is truly who you really are, is how you are under pressure.
Yeah.
I have the perfect story for this.
Okay.
And it involves my time in the military. So I was in the military for 6 years and deployed to Iraq in 2008, 2009. And a part of that deployment, we got a whole bunch of people in our unit that weren't a part of it before, because they try to fill gaps that were there. So because you have to have a certain amount of people to go over. So
Right.
one of these young men that filled in, I don't want to say his name in case by some weird random chance he ends up listening to this somehow, but
Probably.
he was very highly thought of in his own eyes, we'll say. We'll say
Okay.
arrogant, I think is what we use, the common word, but
Yeah.
thought he was just the best at everything. He was the best shooter. He was the best soldier that you could ever even think of. And he's like, just wait, when we get over there, I'll be the lead guy, blah, blah, blah. Just nonstop talking all the time. That's what he was kind of known for.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we'll see.
And I know those people.
Yeah, for sure. So long story short, we go through all our training. We get over into Iraq, and part of our training when we get over there is we do what's called a right seat ride. So we get to ride with the unit that we're relieving. So they get to show us, like, hey, these are the problem areas that we can encounter during this time over here. And so we're in our first mission out there, first time going outside the gate.
Yeah.
And I'm just pumped up. I'm so excited. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
And I was
adrenaline, right?
Yeah, I was a machine gunner, and so I'm up in the turret just ready to rock and roll. We do our mission. We get back, and things went fine. And I heard word that this particular private had a little bit of an issue. So he's inside of his vehicle, not even in the turret. He's just sitting in a seat inside what's called an ATV. It's kind of like an enclosed. They actually use it for law enforcement and stuff too. So vehicle. So he couldn't even see outside. And he asked the question. He's like, "Are we outside the wire yet?" And as soon as they said yes, he instantly starts vomiting out of nervousness and just panicking, like losing his mind. So instantly under pressure, he was just like losing it.
Yeah.
Which really revealed
his character.
And he never left it. He was always known as that for the rest of the tour that we were there.
Oh, man.
And he ended up
defining moment.
That's not what you want to be known for, but it really, I had a little note for later on, but I think it's good for now, is truth always has a way of finding you out.
Oh yeah,
you'll eventually be revealed about who you really are, and I think in those pressure situations, it says a lot about a person.
Yeah, well, I thought of, Pastor and I were just talking the other day, and it seems like, I don't know if it's since COVID or if it's just a generational thing, but man, what do they say, knock on wood or something? But if I say this and then go get sick and have to be laid up in bed, but. And I have had to, call in sick or whatever. I've had to skip Sunday school before because I was sick. But I work through sickness all the time. And then there's people, and we're not trying to blast anybody, but there's people that seem like they get sick all the time. And I get sick, as much or more than the average person.
Right.
But I work through it. And so, but there's some people, they just don't. It's like a different mindset. It's like they got a little sniffle and they're staying home.
The moment that adversity hits, even if it's a little bit, it's just like the world is ending.
Yeah. And so the same thing with like, we're in the middle of Heart of Christmas prep. It's like, okay, well, we got to go later than planned. And it's like, oh, nope. I can't do this. Or they stay late and it's just like, oh, so exhausted, and they're just complaining and everything.
Past.
Yeah. And so, again, I'm not trying to blast people, but I guess that's just one of the examples I think of as that example you gave was definitely better, but just something that we see every day is that kind of thing. And then one more thing before we move on is Pastor. He's kind of different than a lot of people. When he's sick, it's probably going to be a longer message than normal, because what he does, it's almost like a concept of, if it's the devil,
I'm not going to let it hold me down.
Yeah, then okay, devil, you
So
want to do that? I'll show
You
you.
watch.
Yeah. And so he's like the other way. He like gives more.
Oh yeah.
When he's sick or when he's battling
if
situation.
he even mentions it in the first place.
Well, yeah, he
Half the
often
time
won't.
you
won't
won't even know.
But then like maybe I might find out, or you might find out, just in passing, and you're like, man, he was sick during that whole time.
You might mention like 2 weeks later, a few weeks ago, I barely got out of bed. You guys didn't even know, and you're like, oh man, that service was powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he pushes through it, and that's what he's
Oh, 100%.
characterized by. I can't even say the word.